Well, check it out, y'all. We got what you need. We're all living in apartments, condos, vans. Well, dude, even you can have a studio in a box. Yes, we can help you with that right here at Blind Knowledge. We work on your budget, and we figure out your measurements. We'll get you the best sound for the best price. Let me know, 877-237-1143 or at blindknowledge.com. Yep.
Specters all around me, living in stark, blazing the dark. One by one, pictures gather around me. Where those moonflowers used to rust no more. Specters gather around here, living in stark, blazing the dark. Night by night, stare into the black where moonflowers used to grow.
Do you struggle with putting yourself first? Are you tired of feeling burnt out and overwhelmed from constantly putting the needs of others before your own? I have created a sacred space that will be available once a week for 10 weeks to learn, dive deep, and create your boundaries to boost your confidence and self-worthiness. Go to www.krista-luna.com and sign up for the Master Your Boundaries course starting in September 2023. And use the code PARANORMAL to get 30% off today on www.crista-luna.com.
Welcome to another episode of Paranormal, the New Normal, the show where we try to delve into the normal. Does it ever really happen? No, but I like it that way. I haven't been normal all my life, so why should I start now? But as always, to join me on this epic quest into normalcy, or try to at least, is my guest, Liz Entin, who is a podcaster, entrepreneur, and author, and loves to talk about the afterlife and all that good stuff, which we're going to get into all that funness. But first things first, how you doing tonight, Liz?
I'm doing good, thanks. How are you?
Glad to hear. It's been a busy freaking day for me. I literally just finished putting together a dog kennel so my dogs won't be interrupting this podcast like they normally do. Listeners, that's good for you. But
yeah, I unfortunately can't promise the same about my dog, so I will do my best to make sure he doesn't. But
yeah,
he's a noisy little guy. So sometimes.
Yeah. I have two North American Mastiffs, so trust me, they make noise.
Okay. I have a small pug chihuahua mix, but he is pretty attention demanding, so.
Oh, trust me, my grandfather once had a poodle who sounded like a lion when he was pissed off, so I can believe it. But well, Liz, the first question I ask everybody on this show is, what got you into the paranormal, supernatural, spiritual world?
Okay, so, definitely like a little bit of a sad story, but my dad passed in 2015. I am basically raised an atheist, culturally Jewish, but atheist. And I kind of took a shot in the dark and decided to see, was there any scientific evidence that could survive death in some way? And just a quick Google search was opened up. I didn't just do one Google search and then change my mind, but it opened the first door to a bit of evidence that there's something going on. So,
well, I am sorry to hear that 100% because my dad passed away in 2017, so I know exactly what that's like, and it's not a good feeling.
It's horrible. I'm so sorry. Yeah, it's terrible.
Oh, it is. It's literally like my best friend in the world before I met my wife. But he was literally my best friend in the world, and it's sad. It's sad. And then losing any parent is sad, I'm sure. Would it have been the same if I lost my mother? I don't know to this day, but we're not gonna get to that.
Okay. That's like another topic, yeah.
But well, the second question, so that's what got you into it. And
so coming into it, yeah, I can talk about what I found when I first Googled if you want, but that was the initial.
Well, I'm sure we're going to get into that.
Okay.
I'm sure we're gonna get into that in a little bit. I'm sure anyway. But
Okay.
the second question I ask anybody, and I like to ask this in the beginning because it always is a great way to open conversations, is have you had any experiences with any paranormal creatures, whether they be ghosts, spirits, extraterrestrials, or even the less likely but always loved cryptids?
I think so. I think that's the most reasonable conclusion is that I don't know if I call them paranormal creatures. I think our science just hasn't explained it yet. So we use the umbrella word paranormal. But I think I've had communications with loved ones who passed away. I can also go into the details.
Oh, well, please do. I mean, whichever one you feel is the most authenticating, I guess, be the best word.
Yeah, evidential. Yeah. Do you want me to tell a specific story or?
Oh, be my guest. That's what this show is all about.
Great. Okay. I wasn't sure if after the 2 questions, then you go into questions of stories. Okay. So I can do a few. Well, I'll tell one about where I think I had possibly personal, first with my dog and then with my dad, or actually first with my cat. So I had a dog and cat who sadly passed away, but they're about the same age. We called them the twins. They were the same size, same color. And if I saw one out of the corner of my eye, I couldn't tell which one was which. And my cat had recently passed. My dog, Peanut, was still living. And I just kind of am working on my bed, look out of the corner of my eye, and I see Peanut running around the corner. But then I look at my feet, and Peanut was still sitting on my feet. So I was like, oh, that's weird. And again, when both were living, if I saw one out of the corner of my eye, I couldn't tell which was which. And then right after I thought I saw that, oh, I'm so sorry. I had everything. I'm sorry about that. I had everything on Do Not Disturb, and I don't know why the call came through. I'm sorry about that. See, that was a paranormal call, right? There you go. So sorry. Can you hear me still?
Oh yeah, perfect.
Give me 1 second because I'm not hearing you. Let me fix this because I think it. Sorry, I hate to do this live. I'm going to still talk while I take my phone, that's my light, and put it off onto Do Not Disturb, which I had on.
Oh,
so
good.
Sorry about that. There you go. Okay, we'll say that was a call from the other side. Read Cal Cooper's books. He does telephone calls from the other side. There you go. So, okay. So as I was saying, so I saw the animal. I couldn't tell which was which. Run around the corner, and then I looked closely, and my dog was still sitting on my feet, and I was like, okay, that. I must have just imagined. And then she was looking the same direction I thought I saw my cat run. And she jumped up and ran and chased excitedly in the same direction I saw the animal. I thought I saw her run. So I was like, that I could say is evidential. And I've had some possibly more extreme stuff too. I've had
all right. Well,
visit.
Oh, dream visit. That's something
Possibly, yeah.
Let me ask you this way. What experience is your most compelling evidence of an afterlife?
My personal experience, I'd say when it all comes together, but I can give a dream, one that was verified. Again, animals. I seem to get more verified with animals, but I also gave a medium reading once, even though I'm not a medium 99.9% of the time.
Okay, well, I want to hear about both these, but let's start with the dream.
The dream. Okay, so I had potential dream visits from my dad, but they weren't verified. Then again, this cat, I was half falling asleep, and I felt like, when you're in that hypnagogic state, like half asleep, half awake, and you kind of are semi-dreaming, but you realize you're starting to fall asleep dreaming. I felt I was doing that, and I very strongly saw my cat, who had just recently passed, my cat Simba. And I felt her there, and it was very strong. And I said to her, Simba, I can't fully tell if I'm dreaming or if this is possibly genuine. I don't necessarily really believe this. If this is genuine, I need some verification. So I wake up the next morning, and there's a message from a psychic medium I'm friends with. And they said, did you possibly, they weren't good friends at this point, and I hadn't told them anything about my animals that I'd lost, and I hadn't really posted on social media. And they said in the message, did you have a kind of orange cream colored cat that followed you around like a dog and was obsessed with food? I was like, yes. And she apparently had a dream that night with me and with this cat following her everywhere. She described the cat physically. It matched. I sent her a photo of when the cat was kind of a bit elderly, and she said, oh, it was a little bigger than that. So I sent her when the cat was young, and she said that was the exact cat. So I was like, okay, that's pretty verified. And
interesting. I mean, when someone else can actually confirm that there was an animal spirit presence, that's unheard of in my book. So wow, like,
yeah,
I mean, short of hearing, I mean, yeah, people say all the time they hear like their deceased dog bark or their deceased cat's meow like randomly, but that could be played up to a trick of the mind. But when someone else actually confirms it, that's just solid. To me, that's solid proof. I mean, some skeptics out there might be like, oh, whatever, but to me, that's solid freaking proof. Like, I can't get over that. So, wow, I am so happy you told that story.
I'm so happy I had that story happen to me, because I'm still consider myself pretty skeptical and logical, and so I was pretty blown away. And yeah.
Well, let me ask this question. Oh, okay, I'm not gonna ask a question even because I want to hear the other story you mentioned. I totally just blanked on the topic of it, but I want to hear it.
You're asking when I had like personal experiences, not counting, I mean, I've read all the data and evidence, I've gone to mediums. So I'll give another personal story, because I guess I've had a few. So this was fairly early on in my researching all of this. It was probably I've been studying it for about a year, and I was still super skeptical. And in a lot of ways, I still am. And have you heard of, as your audience, heard of the Forever Family Foundation at all?
Okay. I can't say I have, but I can't speak for the audience. But
okay, so I'll explain who they are. They are an organization. They certify psychic mediums by having them pass a test where they're blinded to any information on the sitter they're reading, and they use science-based testing protocols to assure the mediums can't do a hot reading, can't do a cold reading, and they need to get highly accurate and specific information. They can't say, oh, you have a grandmother and she loved you. They have to get very accurate information and about people they don't know. And they also have a scientific advisory board that studies survival of consciousness and afterlife research. And I was at one of their events. They were founded by Fran and Bob Ginsburg, and sadly Fran passed away about 2 years ago, and she was like my mentor, and Bob's another one of my mentors. Wonderful people. They started it after the passing of their daughter Bailey. And so they do conferences, conventions, grief retreats, and I was at the very first event that I ever went to for them. I've now gone to many and do volunteer with them. But at this point, on the last night, they had a panel of psychic mediums, I guess about 12 of them, and it was a dinner banquet, and any guests who were there who were studying to be mediums themselves, wanted to give readings, were told to go up and give readings. Now, as a joke, because everyone knows how skeptical I am, they said, Liz, why don't you get up and give readings? And I was like, haha, right. I don't know if I believe this, but okay. Then I said, you know what? I had taken a class on psychic mediums with Lloyd Arbach, and he's a parapsychologist as well as a stage magician, and a mentalist, so he knows how to assess a situation and what ways someone could be cheating, but he does think they're psychic mediums that are genuine too. He's also a teacher at the Rhine Education Center. So I'd taken a class with him, and we learned about some studies on psychic mediums, and as well as about cold readings. So I was like, I'll practice. I'll do a cold reading. So I got up to do kind of not even a good cold reading, because cold reading and mentalism is a skill in and of itself. And I started to feel really weird. I felt all these waves going through me. And I walked over to one of the mediums. I don't even know why I chose this one. And I barely knew the mediums at this point. I've since become good friends with a lot of them. So now this wouldn't count because I could unconsciously, they could have told me information I could have forgotten. And I felt all these weaves pouring through me. And at one point I felt all the waves build up in my heart and like explode there, and build up in my heart and explode there. And I said, did someone die of a heart attack? And he was like, yes. And then I felt the same thing happen in my head. And it was like, they'd build up and burst and build up and burst. I was like, someone died. Would that be an aneurysm? And he was like, yes. And it was so weird. And the waves were just going through me and I was getting accurate information. I can't do this normally. So I don't even know. That's where I was just like, what the fuck? Like, this is so weird. So I don't know what to even say beyond that. It happened.
That's incredible. I mean, I know so many psychic mediums now, and I still have never had to this day I've had premonitions that didn't mean shit, but I mean, other than that, I never had any other type of experience like that. So to me, that's all inspiring. Like, I would love to have an experience like that. I really would. It's just something that I would love to be. I would love to be able to be a psychic medium. I truly would.
Yeah, I mean, I can't normally. I would love to too. Actually, my dream, I'd love to be able to have out of body experiences. I think if I could choose one of the abilities, I think it would be out of body. Medium would be pretty great, but out of body, I think, would be my first choice.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd rather do out of body or astral projection. That to me is
the same thing.
It is and it isn't.
It's not?
An out of body.
Wait, how is it not?
An out of body experience. I mean, I'm no freaking expert in the subject. Talk to my buddy Vincent Field if you really want someone on your show who knows about this stuff.
Yeah,
but
I do.
An out of body Vincent Field. He's an author. He wrote a book about astral projection and astral projection and lucid dreaming. He wrote a book about it. He's a really good. He's amazing. Yeah. Also, I'll shoot you his Facebook page. He's a good guy. But an out of body experience means you have no control. It means you're just out of your body. Astral projection means you have complete control about where you go and what you're looking for.
Oh, I didn't know there was a difference. Okay, astral projection. That's what I'd want.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, astral projection is when like they show like the cartoon clips they show of like someone's like that's alive like projecting into someone else's room when they're sleeping. Like if someone you love or whatever, not trying to show this in a creepy way, but yeah, you just have more control with astral projection. With out of body experience, it's usually just like, oh, I died for a second, I came up with my body and then went back down. Like that's usually what an out of body experience is. Like it's not a prolonged thing. Usually there are exceptions. I've heard exceptions, but I mean, astral projection is usually one of my co-hosts of my other podcast, Global Strangeness. She took classes during COVID on how to astral project, and she's supposed, according to her, she's gotten pretty good at it. She hasn't come visit me in a dream or anything. So Deborah, I mean, you're slacking here, but I mean, yeah, she's gotten pretty good at it, according to what she said. I mean, and astral projection is what there was a detective from New York City in this class, learning how to do this to help solve cases.
I want to talk to that detective. He probably keeps it. They probably keep a secret that they do this. But that's amazing. Seriously.
I mean, honestly, if you post in like the Need to Guess groups on Facebook, you might find a cop who has done that. It wouldn't be. There's a lot of cops that do it, from what I hear nowadays, because it's a lot of detectives that do it because it's a way to figure out cases without like when you're out of leads. But or if you really think someone did it but you can't prove it, it's a way to figure out stuff. But
that's so verified. I sort of have heard cops do this, but I've never really heard tangibly. So I mean, that sounds very tangible. She's met them. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, this is all before I met her, but she told me my other co-host about it. So, but all right. Well, let me ask you this, because I asked you what your most compelling evidence is. What do you think is the most compelling evidence out there in the world altogether for an afterlife?
Oof, that's a good one. It's really hard to pick one because it's kind of when they all come together. If you have one thing, you could maybe explain it away or just say, there's going to be an answer for this. But when you take near-death experiences, mediumship, when you get up to the quintuple blinded studies and research on them, not just people who make claims, but when they're actually being studied in blinded, controlled settings and getting highly accurate information, when mediums then are getting their brains scanned and their brain activity is just mind-blowing and fairly abnormal, and then cases of kids with past life memories. And I'd say when you take all this out-of-body experiences, when you take it and you take the amount that's verified, because there can be a lot of claims in all of these, but there's a significant body of highly verified experiences in all these realms. And to me, that is, you put that together, that's just, it's very strong evidence.
You said the one thing I was hoping you'd say, that if you didn't say it, I was going to shout it out as soon as you got done. But you mentioned, basically, I was going to say reincarnation, but with kids with past life experiences, the same thing. Like it's reincarnation, which I was hoping you would say that, and you did, which just made me the happiest man ever. But
I'm going to make you even happier then. That was the very first body of evidence I found that made me think something's going on, was cases of kids with past life memories. Dr. Jim Tucker, are you into reincarnation? You know Dr. Jim Tucker and Dr. Ian Stevenson?
I don't know any doctors who do or study reincarnation by name, but I've seen a lot of documentaries on it.
If you're fascinated by this, you're gonna just delve in. You're gonna love them. Dr. Jim Tucker and Dr. Ian Stevenson has passed away, and Jim Tucker's taken over his work, and they were professors at the University of Virginia, and they're child psychiatrists, and they also are professors of psychiatry, and so very logical people, and they study cases of kids with past life memories, and they try to solve the cases. They try to figure out who the person is saying that they were, and then they try to verify it. And they're part of the Division of Perceptual Studies at the University of Virginia, which studies all of this, like cases of kids with past life memories, near-death experience, psychic mediums. And nobody knows. I took so much digging to find that there's actually valid evidence behind all of this. And when I found this is just the most life-changing thing. And so, I can tell one of the craziest stories that just blew my mind. If you're into reincarnation, you want me to tell you a crazy story that Dr. Tucker studied?
Oh, we love crazy stories in this podcast, so please go ahead.
Okay, so this is his most famous case, and apparently the one that convinced Dr. Jim Tucker that something was going on. It's the James Leininger case, and it's a little boy. Most of the kids, almost all of them, have memories until they're about 5 years old, and then they just forget them. So this little boy was probably about 2, 3, 4, and he kept playing with these toy airplanes and crying, and he was having nightmares. You know the story?
I do, but please go ahead for my listeners.
Okay. And his parents, he would wake up in the night screaming, plane on fire, little man go down, plane on fire, little man go down. And the parents had no idea what was going on. So they found Dr. Jim Tucker, who researched the case. I guess they thought I don't remember if they thought it was a past life and that's why they brought in Dr. Jim Tucker, or they just found a child psychiatrist. But what Dr. Tucker noticed is that the way he was playing, as well as his nightmares, when he played the games with the planes crashing repeatedly, it was the way a child actually plays out unprocessed trauma. Usually trauma that they see in this lifetime. Like if they were to witness a violent crime, that's, for example, how this child was playing. And then it just, through many, many fascinating evidential details, they trace him back to a pilot who passed away in World War II. And it gets to the point where he ends up, one part was he had these 3 dolls. One had, I might have the hair colors wrong, one had black hair, one had blonde hair, and one had red hair. And he gave them each a name. So fast forward, Dr. Tucker traces him to this man who seemed to passed away in World War II as a fighter pilot. And he met with the sister of this man who was now elderly. He met with his Air Force troop, When he met with his sister, they shared memories of the family. The sister was like, I don't know what's going on, but he knows stuff related to our family. When he met with the Air Force troop, now elderly men, they also shared memories. And the child, the names of the dolls had corresponded with names of men in his troop, and the hair colors matched. Like, let's say there was like a Tom who had red hair. His doll was named Tom, and there was a Tom in his troop, and all three of them matched. So that was just a tiny drop of evidence of the craziest case. Like, I still remember when I first read that case early on in my grief, hoping this was true, and it was life changing.
Yes, I see that. I've heard other podcasts where that story's talked about. That's why I know it. But
Yeah, talk about
and also
that.
I also know the story of the young Indian woman who she claimed she could remember all these things from a past life, and like she had to be 6, 7 maybe, and they actually took her across India to where she thought she was from, and like she actually met her husband in a previous life, which and like
Right.
she recognized the house right away, and like she remembered when they did all like what year they did all the like the different like expansions or construction on it. So it's just that those two stories together make me believe in reincarnation more than anything in this world.
And these are two of multiple cases written by
Oh,
Dr. Stevenson and
I-
Dr. Tucker. It's just unbelievable. Yeah.
it is one of my dreams for this podcast to get someone on here who, as a kid, had a past life that they could see their whole childhood and they still remember it. Like that's my dream. But
If I find one, I'll send them your way.
appreciate it. I'll do the same. But
Thank you.
all right. Well, let me ask you this. Because I personally was an atheist too in high school. I mean, I was brought up Christian, but Protestant. But I mean, as my listeners know, but in high school, college, I was atheist for the most part. And then as I matured, I became more agnostic because I didn't want to say there's nothing out there anymore. I want to say there's something. I just don't know what it is, whether it's extraterrestrial or maybe some kind of god, old gods maybe. I'd like to think that Odin's watching over us. But yeah, Assassin's Creed got me to a lot of ancient stuff. But so I mean, I like to think. So what made you think that all these psychic abilities in Afterlife, what made you go from thinking it's all nonsense to thinking it's real? Because I did the same thing, and I want to kind of hear your explanation for it.
Oh, sure. And I'm going to give a very long story into a very condensed setting and condensed story. But I will actually say I still consider myself an atheist, or maybe more of an evidentialist. Like I think there's strong evidence for survival of consciousness, but I haven't seen any evidence for a god, not any that I would think. So I'll just say that. And then, God, so mediumship, it started, if we just even break down mediumship, well, reincarnation was based on the work of Dr. Tucker and Stevenson. So if we get into mediumship, also the Division of Perceptual Studies at the University of Virginia studies mediumship. There's the Windbridge Institute, Dr. Julie Beischel and Mark Bacuzzi. They are co-founders of Windbridge, and they're also married. And Windbridge researches psychic mediums. And Dr. Beischel was originally a pharmacologist. I mean, very logical left brain. And she began to study psychic mediums after a personal experience of a reading that she received. And when I started delving into their research, they had up to quintuple blinded studies on psychic mediums who were getting accurate, specific information. And I mean, these mediums were, some of the examples of a test would be they'd read for a proxy sitter. So someone who wasn't even the sitter would be sitting in, it'd be on the phone, and it would be like the phone at Windbridge, not any person's phone that could be Googled in any way. And the proxy sitter didn't even know who the reading was for. And the sitter knew, like at their time, I mean, the proxy got the first name of the deceased loved ones. The sitter knew that at this time they were supposed to tell their deceased loved ones to go talk to this medium. And so you can't get more blinded than that. And then the proxy took down all the information, and then eventually the sitter got 2 readings, and they had to score them both and see which one they thought was for them. So this is just one of the type of studies done by Winbridge. So that Division of Perceptual Studies, I learned about Forever Family that I mentioned in the beginning. A lot of the history conducted by the Society for Cyclical Research, where they were studying psychic mediums 100 years ago. Dr. Jeff Tarrant, who scans mediums' brains with an EEG for unusual or interesting, explicable brainwave activity. That, and then I got my own readings. And then I had that one weird experience that I had that made me understand when mediums would talk about their experiences. It made me able to identify and believe them more. Because they're like, well, I sort of felt this. I was like, yeah, right, you did, you know. But they were, all of that came together. I was just like, they're really, could there end up being another explanation for all of this that we have no idea yet? And the answer isn't survival of consciousness. I hope not. It's possible, but I don't think it's the most likely explanation anymore. So that's,
Exactly.
yeah.
Well, I mean, my personal journey, because I don't think I ever told this on the podcast before. Honestly, it's going to sound ridiculous and childish almost in a way, but Assassin's Creed made me believe in the afterlife more than anything, because the gods in the story they tell is so epic, and the gods in it, the different gods of different nations, from Egypt to Greece to the Norse people, like, it's just, I mean, I listened to mythology podcasts for years too before I really got into those 3 games, but I don't know, it just, all these different nations that believed in old gods, they didn't just come out of nowhere with it. They had to have, whether they were extraterrestrial in nature, and that's what they thought they were gods, maybe. I'm not saying that's not the possibility here, but they had something. They had something they believed in, and they saw these creatures. So that to me is proof. That's solid freaking proof. Fucking proof. Like, that's solid fucking proof. I'll curse. I don't care. It's solid fucking proof.
Mm-hmm.
And then I live in a haunted house now. The first house I ever bought is a haunted house.
I want to hear this. That's so amazing.
I'll keep it short because my listeners have heard this before. But,
sorry. You don't have to tell me.
No. I'll tell you the short version of it. But we bought the house. We had investigators come in. Supposedly, it's the husband and wife who originally owned the house and built it that are here. We've had some experiences where we think it's something a little more sinister in nature than just your average passed on spirit, but we don't know for sure. I want to get my friend who's been on this pod. Well, she's all my guests are friends at this point. So, my one friend / ex guest, previous guest, who will hopefully be on again at some point because she has so much to tell. But Sunshine and Star, who from Salem, Massachusetts, who's only like 45 minutes an hour from me, but she's willing to come and clean up my house, and I want her to do it, but I need the money to do it because she has to travel like a distance to do it, so I don't blame her in charging for it. But I just get the money to do it, but we want her to clear out the house because my dogs will see stuff that like no one else sees. Like you'll get cold. Like, I'll be sitting here podcasting, I'll get cold as shit. Like, something's whenever I'm talking to a psychic or medium, I've had so many of them tell me off camera and on camera there's spirits around you.
Interesting. Okay.
And I could feel it. Like, I could feel the coldness. I feel like a buzzing light sensation in the middle of my head. Like, I just can't explain it. It's just insane. And I mean, I would think I was going insane if I didn't do this podcast and if I didn't talk to so many people. I've talked to 150 people, 160 people by now in different parts of this world. And all the stuff they tell me and all the experiences they tell me, I can't not believe in the afterlife. I can't not believe there's something after death. Whether we're basically going to a waiting room to be reincarnated to another body, or whether there actually is a great beyond or a horrible below. Who knows? But there's something. And I'm agnostic to this day still, and I want to believe there's something. I'm not going to go praying to anybody. I mean, if I'm drinking or smoking, I'll be like, Odin or Zeus.
Zeus.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
that's a good one to
As soon as I say Zeus, I'm like, no, not Zeus. You're too rapey. But
Yeah, Zeus is kind of horrible, but like I want to say, I mean, a lot of the gods in a lot. I won't say anything too controversial, but a lot of the stuff written about gods sometimes is a little brutal. So
all the stuff about the gods is brutal, but Zeus is extra rapey. So as soon as I pray to him, I was like, no, not Zeus. Hera. I claim in the name of Hera. But
that's a good one.
Oh yeah, she put up with him. So fuck yeah, she's a great god. But goddess.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was my personal journey. Like all that together just made me believe. Getting into the paranormal made me believe because I've heard so many stories about ghosts and spirits that I can't not believe there's something. But I've had previous guests on as well too. Corby Mitlead. I'm sorry if I'm not Mitlead. Yeah, Corby Mitlead. I'm mispronouncing your name, Corby. I apologize to the fullest, but it's been a while. She wrote a book called the Yellow Brick Road Guide to Psychics about the difference between good and bad psychics. So, since you've been delving into this and experimenting, what would you say is the best psychic experience you had? And you may have already told us that, and what is the worst psychic experience you've had?
Okay. Oh, this is a good one. I'm gonna have to say 2 for the worst because I think it's important people know about both kinds. The best have been. I can't say there's 1 or 2 best. It's been a group of them that just have blown me away. Highly evidential. They know things they can't have known. You know, one of them knew. A recent one, my friend Kathy Needle gave me a reading, and okay, she's my friend, but we were barely friends at this point, and she knew my dad's hobby that I don't tell anyone ever. Not because there's anything wrong with it, but this is highly evidential. It's it's something for preserving my readings. My friend Joe Peretta, he read me before we were friends. I didn't even give him my real identity. Just lots of the ones, so many of the ones from the Forever Family Foundation, because their protocols are so hard to pass, they've just blown me away. And it's when they know things they can't have known. I'll give an example, like starting from my very first medium reading, and almost all the ones that were good, they didn't always get grandma, but they basically described my grandma, and she often would come in first. And then I had another reading with a medium, and it was very consistent describing my grandma coming in. And then later in the reading, he says her name, and he's like, and that's the name of the woman who came in first. So it's when things like that happen. Another, like my uncle Bobby on my dad's side sadly passed away too. So my dad had me a lot later in life. So he's like the age of my friends' grandpas, like my friends my age. I have friends all different ages, but they, he's the age of my friends' grandparents, my age. And this one medium was like, oh, your dad says he's hanging out with Bobby. She didn't get Bobby had passed away. She's like, so tell Bobby that he's around him. I'm like, that's my uncle, he passed. Like, that makes sense. And so just, it's a lot when you get mediums like that. They just know facts. They know memories. They know things you did together. I've had some know things that I didn't know that I verified later and turned out to be right. So those I'd say are the best readings. They don't know who you are. You give a fake identity and they know a lot of facts that someone can't just know. And it's not general. Now, the worst, I can actually tell, it'll be a little fun. So I'll tell a few different ones. Because one, I went to a seance that was supposed to have all the physical stuff. Oh, it was the fakest worst. I mean, it made a great chapter in my book. Writing a book about this, I'm like, this is terrific. But it's also dishonest and horrible and deceiving people. And it was a carnival show. Like, he had like ectoplasm coming out of his mouth, and I snuck in the back afterwards and found like a Santa beard. I was like, of course. So that one, and he was just doing it was like so exaggerated and so carnival show, and like spirits screaming, like funny jokes. It was absurd, and he was like roaring. I don't know, it was ridiculous. And then the worst. There's been quite a few. I just think this is important to say, but not as dramatic or entertaining. But I think there's a lot that are not as evidential but good-hearted, and they mean well, but they just can't get very accurate, specific information. And, you know, I think they're just honest. And some of those, when I've had a few where they're like, I'm like saying no to everything, they offer a refund, and you can tell they're honest-hearted. Now, the two other terrible ones, I went to one of those storefront psychics, and everything was so general. I mean, first of all, she didn't try to bring in anyone who passed away. It was just, she was giving a psychic reading. But if you listen, she says things that very clearly would apply to anybody who looks like me, you know, like late 20s at the time, living in New York. Like, I was stressed out, I was tired. A lot of generalizations. Some things were wrong, but would apply to a lot of people, especially ones going to see a psychic. She said, like, you know, all my friends are untrustworthy and everyone gossips behind each other's back, which are not my friends. I don't hang out with people like that, but I've cleared those people out of my life very happily. But that's a reasonable thing. And then a thing that she said is something where you'll say two different things, and people who believe this, you want to remember the good. So she brought money, and she said, you're really good at money. It comes in, you save it, invest. And then later she's like, money comes in one hand and out the other. And so they're talking really fast. So your brain is going to pick up on what you relate to, and you walk out remembering that. But, you know, I mean, and then the closure was, she said she basically was like saying I was supposed to be married by this point, and the reason I wasn't, she went through basically a typical breakup. She's like, you were with a guy and you tried to make it work and it didn't, and you tried a little bit again, and so, but it didn't work. I mean, I don't know a single person who hasn't had a relationship like that by the time they're in their late 20s. And then she was like, but he left a bad energy on you. I have a solution. Here's candles that will clear the energy, and they're $300. So stay away.
That right there in Corby's book, and she said in my podcast, that's one of the, if they're asking you to spend an exorbitant amount of money on candles specifically, but anything like that,
candles, crystals, yeah.
They're as fake as a freaking New York City hooker's earrings. Like, that's just the way it goes. Like, they're so fake. Like, they're just fake. Like, it's just, and that drives me nuts, because people want to believe. Like, people just believe. Like Mulder said, we want to believe things, but people like that freaking ruin it. Yeah. And I had another, like, I guess I like to say, the good ones, it's consistent. They give highly accurate information, and they don't ask you questions. I mean, maybe basic, you know, they want you to say yes, no. They might ask a question along the way, but they're basically giving you information, and it's a pretty consistent thing. And they know things they can't know, and they're comfortable when you don't give them information. And then the other bad one, it's given the Psychic Carnival show, and then the Candle Deceiver, and then this one, she was like one of the high-end ones, but complete con artist. And I mean, maybe she believed it. I don't think so. I don't know. Maybe. I think she's like intuitive, but then when she was like, I expected her to get evidence, she didn't know what to do, because she was just everything she was saying, I was saying no to. And she's like, well, what do you want out of this reading? I was like, tangible evidence that we survived bodily death, and you to know things that would verify that, you know? And so she was like, oh. And then in the end, I mean, I said no to everything she said, and she was like trying to fill the time instead of giving me a refund, but she should have done. And I didn't ask for it, because I was also knew I was researching, and I was like, I gotta learn this. And this is it was early on. And I was like, this is what I thought most of them would be, but most of them were not this. And she said, in the end, I mean, she just like, it was filled. She was like talking about like how my dad, I had to tell her I lost my dad finally, how I need to be more trusting. And he's saying that I need to learn to trust. And she was saying, you know, when you try to put mediums into a proving situation, it never works. I'm like, oh, bullshit. There's like quintuple blinded studies. If that was true, no mediums would pass. And then one of her final lines, after like filling it with like chants and prayers, I mean, just desperate to fill the hour, she was like, it's so funny, you know, you came into this wanting me to prove it, but the whole point is about
you not needing proof, but knowing for yourself. I was like, oh, you know.
It's like, can you spout a bigger mouth of bullshit than that?
Oh,
Like-
she's like, maybe if you offer me $300 candles to top it off, that might be the one bigger mouth of bullshit.
Oh my God. Like, oh my
Yeah.
fucking God. Like, I just,
Yeah.
I would have had her crying by the end of the fucking night. Like, I
Oh
would have
my
had her,
God.
like, I would have had her crying. Like, cause like, I never had a psychic reading. And oh, thank you, Brian. I'm glad you're enjoying it tonight again. And we do rock. I mean, what can I say? What can I say? But and yeah, with mediums it is hit and miss. Like, yeah, see, I say this all the time on this show and other shows I'm on, but I grew up in the 90s when psychics were something that they had a little storefront in the front of their house, and I was brought up like, don't trust them. They're all just trying to like steal your money. They're gypsies, which I hate that word, but they're gypsies. They're scam artists. Like, that's all I heard growing up, and that's all like TV shows did, like Fresh Prince and other TV shows. They showed them as scam artists. But
Right.
but when I started this podcast, the first medium I brought on, I don't remember who it was off the top of my head, but they made me believer, and then each one that came on after that, and I've had a good dozen of them now at least. They all make me more believing, because they are all talented in their skill, and they've done the same thing to me after shows. Like when the camera goes off, they all of a sudden will say like, something's coming through for you, or even some of them have even done it on camera. If you listen to the right episode, you'll hear it. But they even they'll know things about me that you can figure out these things about me by Googling me. Even like, there's no way to figure out these things about my past, my family. There's no way. Like, you Google me, my podcast will come up. That's it. Like, my podcasting career, that's all come up. Nothing else comes up. I don't have a criminal record. I've been in the paper for shit. So,
Okay.
like, it's the way it goes. And like, they know something, and I can't figure out why. And it makes me believe in them. But
yeah. Yeah,
But
they know stuff from like before social media. Like, they knew my grandma had lost a young child. I mean, this was when my mom was like a baby, you know? So I'm like, they know stuff like that. I'm like, well, I guarantee back then they didn't even have social media. And so they know stuff like that, you know?
And they're not going to put something like that in the paper. That's for damn sure. But
No, I mean, if they did, like, the odds of them finding that under like my grandma's last name, I mean, how would they? No, I don't think that's in the paper anywhere. I mean, I've tried to Google and find it. You can't find it.
exactly. And so, what can you do, in your opinion, to prevent an experience with a bad medium, or to prevent a medium from cheating and like giving you false answers?
Well, first of all, you can go to places like the Forever Family Foundation and Winbridge, where they've already passed science-based testing and they take it very seriously. And, you know, I had a friend who went to one of the mediums that was wonderful with me from Forever Family, and she wasn't getting anything from my friend. And within 15 minutes, she said, I don't know why I'm not getting stuff. She didn't try to make anything up. She's like, I'm going to give you either a refund or we can try again in a week. It's up to you. And if they don't come in again, you get a refund. So that's what one does if you're saying no to everything. That's what an honest one does. So how you can know, first of all, use fake identity. Use a Google Voice number. Do a phone call. So if you're worried about facial recognition technology, use a Google Voice number. Have a friend, not a family member, pay. Use a fake name. You can use your real first name if you have a name like me, like Elizabeth. You know, what are you going to find from Elizabeth? If you have some super unique first name, maybe don't. Those are just ways you won't wonder if they're really good. Although, as we were saying, some of the ones, a lot have gotten stuff that isn't Googleable. Like Joanne Gerber, this one medium, hadn't known her at that point and was under a fake identity. And my laptop had been broken for a week and I was so irritated. They were slow. And she's like, your dad said your computer's almost finished, almost done being repaired. He knows you're annoyed about that. I'm like, okay, that's not Googleable. I wasn't bitching about that on social media. I shouldn't even have my name. So that's a good one. And then what you can also do is don't give them information. Say yes, no. Notice if they're saying very general things. You can, and then if in like 10 minutes, you have every right to ask for your money back.
I mean, my favorite thing about when I think about psychics is I think about the episode of South Park with John Edwards on it, and like he's just shouting things into like a crowd of people, which is what he did in real life, and some random person will jump up and like he'll say like I'm seeing the letter K, and somebody will jump up and be like my grandmother Katie died back 30 years ago, and like you're giving him ways to get into your head, like.
Don't do that.
If he was real, he would be able to have so much more information than that. He would know the full name at least.
Not necessarily. I've had ones that a lot don't get names. Also, John Edwards, I don't want to speak about him because I'm not sure, but I know he has participated in scientific testing. What might have happened is sometimes when mediums, and I don't know about all, but I have heard that initially he was very genuine. He might. And he still could be. I think that I don't agree with this. This is very unethical, but often I will hear of the possibility that suddenly when they have like millions of dollars on the line in TV shows and they're in front of huge crowds that spent who knows what, they can't perform at that level all the time. So they slip into cold reading and cheating, which I'm very anti-cheating. I think it would be so much more ethical to say, I'm sorry, sometimes mediums have terrible nights and I'm off tonight. Like if I went to a group reading early on and a medium did that, I would have so much respect for them. I would know that it would help add to the evidence of an afterlife. But yeah, don't beat them. Like people will do that. They'll be like, I'm feeling like an older energy. Yes, my grandma passed away when I was 12. We were so close. We used to like go get our nails done at like Bernie's every week. I mean, and then don't give yourself rules. Say yes, no, or maybe, and nothing more. But yes, oftentimes mediums don't get names. That was a mistake I made in the beginning. I was like, if they were good, they would get a name. But I've had some just get an initial, and sometimes even be like, wait, I'm sorry, I'm not even getting the relationship. But then they'll go on and be like, okay, after I said it's my dad, I mean, there'll be like a negative point that I had to say that because I do score my readings. But then they'll go and say, okay, sorry, you had to tell me that, but I remember you and your dad did this when you were a kid. Why is he showing me this? And I'm like, oh, okay. And it'll be very specific then. So none of them are perfect. And it's what I've learned more like playing charades rather than speaking on the phone. So if they get a few things wrong or a few things vague, and then they like know your dad's main hobby and his favorite restaurant, like, yeah, and that your grandma lost a young child, like, I mean, you gotta be kind of assess the whole reading. But yeah, don't record your reading too. That's the thing, because then you can go back and see, did you feed the medium? What did they actually get? What are you misremembering?
Exactly. And I agree. I mean, like, it's just, I still to this day have not gone to a psychic that has been on my show. And I kind of want to get like a full hour reading. Like do it. And the next time I have some disposable money, I will. But I mean, I was supposed to have some now, but then of course the goddamn water heater needed replacing, and there goes half my refund from taxes. But
right.
All right. I got one more question paranormal, and then one more question that's not paranormal at all, but I'm kind of curious. But so to sum it all up for paranormal side, what do you think happens after we die?
Oh my God. I will first preface this by what mediums have said to me when I asked them the unanswerable questions early on. If I actually could answer this, I'd be sitting with my Nobel Prize and my huge like
Well,
penthouse loft. But
that's why I said, what do you think, not what do you know?
Okay, fair disclaimer. Okay, so in a lot of sense, I don't know. The only information, it seems, our consciousness survives in a non-material form. What happens after like 10,000 years? We don't know. You know, what happens in a trillion years? What happens after the big crunch? We don't know. It definitely seems that our consciousness survives and we continue in a lot of ways outside of a body. If I could guess, it would be something. Our consciousness is like the cloud. Like our official consciousness are quantum particles, some form of quantum particle, maybe related to another dimension that somehow string theory is starting to get hints and glimpses of. And it downloads into our brains when we're here as a person, and quantum entangles with our brains while we have experiences here. And when our body dies, all the information and data and experiences as a person goes back into our full non-physical selves, and it downloads into other bodies at different times. I would guess on other planets too. I mean, we live in a huge universe, possibly a multiverse. There are multiple Goldilocks planets. There's no way Earth is the only one with intelligent life. And we don't know yet what mechanism this consciousness is made up of. I'm most likely some form of like vibrational quantum particle that's even more like complex than molecules and atoms and all the stuff we really discovered fairly recently. And there seems to be a part of our brains called microtubules, and this is discovered by Dr. Stuart Hameroff and Sir Roger Penrose, and they are Nobel Prize winning physicists. One of them, or maybe both of them, worked with Stephen Hawking, and they found a part of our brains and bodies that seem able to quantum entangle with information. I am not smart enough to fully understand it. I wish I was. That's why I'm explaining it the best I can, just because I'm not that smart. So that seems to be able to quantum entangle in a way, probably with a quantum particle that stores our consciousness. That's how it seems to be. In some way, information travels. And, you know, we have hints into that with near-death experiences, but these are people that only went so far because they survived, you know, I mean, they didn't die, you know, and we have hints of it with mediums communicating with people who've passed away. But even if they're speaking with your great grandparents, let's say that was only like 200 years ago, that's still really not that long. So we don't, again, what happens after the big crunch, what happened to our consciousness before the big bang, that's where we're stuck. But in this little window of time, it seems consciousness exists non-locally and quantum entangles with the brain. There's my answer. Probably won't get me a Nobel Prize, but it's a theory, hypothesis.
It's a great hypothesis, and don't doubt yourself. Don't doubt yourself by saying you're not intelligent, because everybody is intelligent in their own way.
Well, I think I'm intelligent, but I don't think I'm Stephen Hawking intelligent.
Oh, okay. Well, except that's acceptable. That's acceptable.
I was trying to explain things that people who like won Nobel Prizes and work with Stephen Hawking like are able to explain. That's why I'm like, I can only understand them some. So I don't think I'm stupid, but I don't think I'm Stephen Hawking. So not to knock myself, I'm fine with that.
That is a huge spectrum.
Yes.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm definitely not Stephen. I'm definitely not Stephen Hawking or Einstein intelligent either. That's for damn sure.
Right.
But I mean, I'm pretty damn intelligent when I'm sober. But I mean, I'm not that level.
Right.
But
right. Okay. So I'm relatively, So compared, I'm trying to explain theories. Yeah.
But like, before I get to my final question, I will say, and my audience has heard me say this before, so I'll keep it short. But I have two theories about what happens in the afterlife.
I want to hear.
I truly believe, because I've heard enough through starseeds and mediums, that those who are not stuck on Earth once they die, those are willing to go, they're not stuck here for some reason, they go to basically a waiting room, like the DMV waiting room, where I know, right? Where you basically are waiting for another body to take over. And in that theory, we are all extraterrestrial in origin. But our spirits are, not our bodies, our spirits are. And we are all waiting for another body to take over until we achieve our ultimate goals and we can move on to a further plane, a further dimension that we don't know what it is yet. We may call it heaven, but we don't know what it truly is. The other theory I have is a theory for those who are stuck on Earth. And this is kind of like an evolution of spirits type of theory. We basically start off as like a foggy mist when we pass away because we don't know. We're babies. We're ghost babies. We don't know how to do anything. We're basically just a foggy mist. From there, I believe we evolve into shadow people if we're still stuck on Earth, because we can make ourselves look human, but we can't define our features yet or make ourselves look like we once did. And then the final phase is the full Ghostbuster style, full body apparition. And that to me is my two theories about afterlife. Is if you're stuck on Earth, you go through these phases where you evolve to become what you eventually will become. If you're stuck on Earth for a long, long time, like a lot of Native Americans are because they were wronged horribly, or like a lot of people who died horribly in the last 300 years in America are, like Civil War veterans, any war veteran really. Like it's just, or anybody killed in the war, I should say, because they're stuck because they don't know what happened. They just were alive one second and not there the next. But hello, Lizzie. Thank you for coming in to check out the end of the show. Hope you watch the whole thing in replay. But
hi.
The final question I have, and for those none of you will know this, but I found Liz on podcastguest.com, which you've heard me all mention before, and there was one little tidbit on her page that made me.
Oh, I know what you're asking. Yeah, Peanut. I talked about Peanut already. That you can meet her.
Oh,
no. Oh no, not Peanut.
No.
Okay, sorry.
As a huge Kevin Smith fan, and I've heard Kevin Smith talk multiple times about how he was wronged by this man and how this man called him the day before he went to prison. So Liz testified in the Harvey Weinstein
Peanut.
case.
That's Peanut.
Oh, I thought you said PETA.
Peanut, my dog. Yeah, Harvey Weinstein. I knew that's what you were gonna say because it's a badass story. Can I brag?
I don't know what it has to do with the dog. But okay, I'm dying to find out.
So you didn't read it? Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I read it to a degree, but I didn't fully read it. But I saw the name and that's all it took. But I'm a huge Kevin Smith fan, and he talks about how Harvey Weinstein, which everybody knows who Harvey Weinstein is, everybody knows what he did and what a horrible person he was. But Kevin Smith talks about how all the time how Harvey Weinstein called him the day before he went to prison to try to like be buddy with him, to try to have friends before he really got, well, maybe it wasn't before he went to prison, but it was before he got arrested. And like and how he tried, and like it sickens Kevin Smith that he called him the night before he got arrested. But you testified in his case, and I'm kind of dying to hear about that. And it's not paranormal at all, but I'm on to end the show with it because it's freaking amazing.
Oh, it's paranormal because I'm gonna have Peanut haunt him. Okay, so I don't want to like tell all the part of my friend's story because that's not mine to tell. But I was doing a summer internship in fashion in New York, where I grew up from one of my friends. My roommate was his assistant, and I don't have a right to go into her story, but she was sexually assaulted by him. At the same time, my dog, Peanut, lived in the apartment with us. Chihuahua. Peanut's a Chihuahua, like pug Chihuahua mix, 12 pounds. One point, Harvey like broke into our apartment. I was at work that day. I wasn't there. But Peanut chased him all around and was chasing him, this like 12-pound sweetest Chihuahua. He was running in like terror from her. So I testify. I'm going to save this. Like, I think bragging is really crass, but I'll save this as my bragging, right? Like, I basically ripped his lawyer a new one, and that went viral. And I mentioned how Peanut chased him, and that went super viral. So, like, page 6 says, Harvey Weinstein was once one of the most powerful men in Hollywood, but he was no match for Peanut the Chihuahua. Peanut had, like, a segment on Court TV. She was mentioned on... She was everywhere, and it was everywhere it went. Like the trial that week was called like 4 accusers and a Chihuahua, and it so Peanut just, I mean, yeah, and then I just yeah, I mean, his lawyer, she's a great lawyer. I think everybody has a right to that kind of lawyer. It shouldn't be money based, but she also used a lot of like rape cliches, and I kind of ripped her to shreds, defended my friend. And yeah, that went viral. And then in the end, like, I told the part about Peanut, and apparently, as he was like walking out the hall, you can see this. The press was like, "Excuse me, Mr. Weinstein, are you afraid of chihuahuas?" And yeah, then Peanut just like blew up everywhere. So
Are those-
Google.
I was gonna say, are those available online?
Oh yeah. And I'm writing in my second book. I'm writing about it too. I mean, I have to see. I have to get it all read and make sure like what I can put in and what I can't. But
Of course.
yeah. But Google Peanut the Chihuahua Harvey Weinstein and send her a little like congrats in doggy. Well, I don't believe in heaven. Doggy the other side. Doggy non-consciousness. Doggy non-physical consciousness states.
No. If there's a heaven of any kind, it's fucking doggy heaven. Come on.
It's fucking
now.
doggy heaven. Yeah.
Because all dogs deserve to go to heaven. Because I have two
I
mastiff puppies, and I had to put another mastiff puppy down at 18 weeks old, and he was born with misshaped kidneys, but I fully believe he is in doggy heaven, even though my wife used to sometimes smell him in the house. So because because his kidneys were failing, he had a very distinct odor. But yeah, it sucked. But that's a good 6-7 months ago now. So I moved on, and we now have two mastiff puppies that I love that also drive me crazy. So it's a fascinating mix. But before we go, tell my listeners where they can find your podcast, where they can find you, your books. Just promote yourself to the fullest, please.
Okay, I'm gonna promote the shit out of myself now. As I said, my book number 2 is it's mainly gonna talk about afterlife evidence, but it's also gonna talk about my part in the Harvey Weinstein trial and Peanut and her part in it, which is really like the highlight of it. And so you can find me on my website. It's WTFJustHappened.net. You can link to all my social media. You can look at my book, which is called What the Fuck Just Happened, spelled WTF Just Happened. A sciencey skeptic explores grief, healing, and evidence of an afterlife. And my podcast, also What the Fuck Just Happened, spelled WTF Just Happened, all about the afterlife, no woo. And you can find that, you can link to it on my website. You can find it everywhere you listen to podcasts.
Well, there you go, folks. Check it out. I know I will be, hopefully, as soon as my podcast schedule clears up a little bit. But it's getting there. It's getting there. It may be a year, but I'll eventually get to all my guest podcasts and check them out. There's too many podcasts, so little time. But I thank you all for listening to mine. And I want to thank Liz for coming on, because it's been a fun episode, and I had so much fun talking to her.
So much fun. Thank you for having me. I had a great time.
Oh, my pleasure. And if you ever want me on your show, I am always willing to be a guest in any show. Basically, I will podcast for exposure, or expose myself for podcast, whatever it takes. But as my co-host says, but on my other show, but you all know where you could find me. You can find me on Facebook as Jeremy Bryant, 2.1K followers as of today. Thank you all. I appreciate it. And you can also find me on Paranormal / Maniacal Music Musings podcast with an S Facebook group. You can find me on Twitter and the Gram as @JuggaloBastard. And you can find me on TikTok as @JuggaloBastard Podcast. And you can, of course, find Paranormal on the New Normal on YouTube, where this used to stream, but now we stream on Blind Knowledge Network, which is our network we are now on. That's where this streams on YouTube. If you want to watch us live, if you don't want to watch us live, if you want to watch replays, then they will all be uploaded the day the podcast gets uploaded to all the podcatchers. So for this one, it'll be towards July, but we'll see. Thank you all for listening and watching. And remember, like and hit that notification bell for new episodes wherever you're listening. And if you're watching us on YouTube, like and subscribe. It helps. It really does help. And I'm trying to make this thing become a thing. So, it's getting there. It just takes time. I understand that. But thank you all. I enjoy this episode like all my episodes to the fullest. And I will see you all for another. Actually, if you see this tonight and you're free in about 49 minutes, we are doing a shark movies bracket on this show as our special this month. And just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water, we're going to show you it's damn well not. So come check it out. Have a good one, folks.